compliments of Nissan.
One man who should be happy with the way the car is running is the team manager, engineer for Dick Johnson's team, formerly of the Peter Brock Holden dealer team, Neil Lowe. And of course, Colin Young has him in the pits.
Neil, a few smiles at the Dick Johnson camp today.
Yeah, it's just a few. It's different from last meeting, isn't it?
What's the situation with the turbocharger? A lot of discussion that maybe Dick's car is not completely legal.
At the moment, there's only a lot of discussion, and all the discussions come from the other teams. They just don't like to see the potential of the Cosworth start to come out. These are an exceptionally powerful motor car. We ran the car for the last 2 meetings in a standard form, exactly as we bought the engine from England. And in the last 2 weeks, we've put in a bit of time and effort and development, and this is the result of it.
Well, it certainly is a great result for Queensland. Dick Johnson leading the 3rd round of the Shell Australian Championship. Mike?
Thank you, Colin. Neil Lowe, once again, reaffirming no problems there. They ran the car almost stock, standard trim off the UK engine builder. And they have been doing a lot of track testing here. I think the thing that was forgotten, that Johnson started the touring car title at Calder, had really no time for development between round 1 and round 2 because all the cars arrived in Tasmania due to a shipping dispute, basically the day of qualifying. And he's had 2 weeks or 3 weeks to play with the car up here, and he's been doing a lot of testing at Surface Paradise, and had a week on Friday and said, you watch it go this weekend.
Look at the background here, the 2 BMWs still nose to tail, and they're starting to close in on Lakeside. And this will be very interesting. I wonder whether or not Glenn's tyres are starting to feel just a little worse for wear, Peter.
Well, that could be the case, Neil, but Glenn's Skyline is at its worst through that fast kink. You'll notice that the Skyline of all the front-running cars has no aerodynamic panels on it. Alf Grant there in the pit. And through the kink, the Skyline tends to get quite unsettled, whereas the BMWs with their rear deck lid spoiler and their front air dam, and it's getting time here.
Yes, they are really closing up on Glenn Seaton now. Jimmy Richards doing all of the pursuing. Tony Longhurst sitting in there. They've had a good thing going. As soon as Jim makes an inside brake on someone, Tony just forms up on the bumper and they take 2 at a time.
Double trouble.
Double trouble is right. So, working down the front straight now, Glenn Seaton. He's quick through this part of the racetrack, and he's been dropping a wheel over onto the grass there all weekend.
And he's 3.8 seconds behind leader Dick Johnson. No need to give you any gaps between the next 3 drivers, that's for sure. Seaton and the 2 BMWs in hot pursuit, Richards and Longhurst. Through the Shell sweeper there beneath the Dunlop Bridge and on the way to Motorcraft Hill, Seaton got away the last lap over Richards and Longhurst. Once again up to the top of the hill. From about this spot on is about the only time that Jim gets onto the bumper of the Nissan Skyline. As soon as they hit the straight, that turbo power comes into play, and Jim doesn't move up again until just over 3/4 of a lap. Notice Denny Holmes back out on the circuit once more, the Ford Sierra. Larry Perkins almost a straight length behind these drivers. Peter Brock behind him, and Alan Grice still sitting in behind Brock. The other thing is that I think Greg Hansford is gradually starting to close the gap just a little on those drivers. Case now of Glenn having to think very carefully about some defensive driving, but he hasn't thought quickly enough. Jim Richards goes through on the inside.
Good move.
Very cleanly done, and Tony Longhurst is going to have 20 cents worth of this as well.
Well, that hasn't worked. The old 1-2 double trouble that Peter mentioned didn't work that time. And we'll see whether or not Tony can effect a similar pass.
That entry into Hungry Corner is a Jim Richards specialty. I can recall 2 years ago he nailed Dick Johnson entering there.
Here they come. Richards running in second, 3rd spot. Of course, there's Glenn Seaton. They've covered 25 laps of round 3 of the Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship so far. The next class we expect, or we're anticipating, will be Seaton and Longhurst. Jim's got a good break, actually. He's going for it. Coming down to Hungary Corner. You can see the gap that Richards has been able to pull out on Glenn Seaton. Meanwhile, Tony Longhurst comes up right on the tail of the Nissan Skyline, and as they come down the roller coaster off Motorcraft Hill, they're going to come up on quite a deal of traffic.
Tony doing a good job. Andrew Madicki in the pits in the Oxo Ford Sierra with problems under the bonnet, as you can see. They haven't been too happy with the car's handling this weekend, but they've had no worries at all in the power plant side of things. They've ejected Andrew Madicki. Longhurst getting closer and closer to the back of Seaton.
Is he what? Tony maybe setting up, if he can get just close enough to make an inside run on Seaton as they go down into the left-hander at Hungary Corner. Not close enough at this moment. This is where Richards was able to nobble Seaton 3 laps ago. But he stayed in touch with the 21-year-old for the last lap of Lakeside.
You can see just how effective the BMW is at being able to nibble away at the back of a bigger car. Tony has the ability even mid-quarter to change his mind and say, OK, I'll try an inside run here. No, I might run for the outside. Fred Gibson is no doubt a worried man. And that's the advantage of having a 960-kilogram car.
Yeah, and the scraps between two of the young lions of touring car racing, 29-year-old Longhurst, 21-year-old Seaton.
Tony just getting a little oversteer as he came out of the corner. They're running a D3 Pirelli radial tyre this weekend. The Nissan is on a Dunlop D06 reasonably hard radial tyre. So certainly nobody running big softies out there at the moment as far as these two cars are concerned. And a look at Longhurst trying to squeeze through on the inside, just gives Seaton a nudge. Alf Grant was the culprit behind all of that, in fact, because Glenn's got nowhere to go.
Yes, he has. Wait for it.
Well, look at Tony.
Tony's thinking about a big run down the outside, but
now Seaton gets a run through on the inside. He was very lucky to get away with that, because initially Alf couldn't do much about it. It was just in the way. That allowed enough room for Tony to get up and nudge Glenn. The cards fell the right way for Seaton that time.
Seaton again puts a wheel out onto the grass as they go through the left-hand kick. Down to the carousel. So a very interesting Australian Touring Car Championship continues at Lakeside. And welcome back to Lakeside International Raceway, lap 30 of 60. And of course Dick Johnson of Queensland is still the race leader in car number 17, but the man who has been stalking him for the past 6 or 8 laps, Jimmy Richards, is starting to gain a little on Queensland's number 1.
At the rate of around about 0.4 of a second per lap. The gap is now 3.01 seconds. You'll see here, there's second place Jim Richards. The gap back to Glenn Seaton in the background, 2.2 seconds. Tony Longhurst hard in behind him, and a further 8 seconds back to Larry Perkins.
All the ingredients for a sizzler of a finish.
Well, you consider there's another 30 laps to come, and weigh into account things like tyres and how tired they'll be, brakes, how hot they'll be, and how the driver's going to fare after a good hour's sprint racing.
A man who probably felt quite confident about the success of number 15, Glenn Seaton, is the Peter Jackson Nissan team manager, Fred Gibson, and Colin Young is with him.
Fred, up until today, you had the fastest turbos in Australian touring car racing.
Well, I think we've still got a fairly quick car, Colin. It's not as fast as Diggy's. It looks like the day's got the wood on us. But, let's see what happens at the end of the day and what end of the weekend, really. No, Diggy's car is very quick in a straight line. It's come out of the blue and been very quick. We're interested to look at the car that finished the race.
You've been talking to Glenn. How's he going?
Glenn's going fine. He's driving very hard and very quick in the car. It's a matter of how fast the BMWs are going to push it along. I don't think we're going to catch Diggy. He seems to be sort of pulling away in the race, but I think we keep the BMWs on us for the whole race.
There's a lot of turbo talk in the pits. What's your opinion?
I'm not saying. I'll wait till I hear the official results at the end of the day.
OK, Fred Gibson still in a confident frame of mind about Glenn Seaton's chances. Mike.
Thank you, Colin. He might well be, but Tony Longhurst is ready to take a little of that confidence and dent it at the moment, because Longhurst is working very hard indeed on the tail of the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. And while that was happening, we saw Alan Grice come out of the pits. As I mentioned before, he started the race with hard compound tyres and has had problems, had a half lose, went into the pits, and we spotted him coming out. In the meantime, though, Longhurst closing up on car number 15, Glenn Seaton. There's Dickie disappearing down the front straight. There's the man going after him, Jimmy Richards, in that magnificent little BMW M3 for the JPS team. What a fantastic little touring car the M3 is, despite all the problems of the opening round of the Bernie Eccleston's World Touring Car fracas in Italy. But full marks to Frank Gardner. He's put together two absolute screamers, perfectly legal cars for 1987.
285 horsepower is the figure the BMWs are producing right now, with more to come soon. So that's the bad news for the rival teams.
Car number 3, Jimmy Richards, running in second. Coming off the Motorcraft Hill.
No problems at all for the JPS team this weekend. Went down and spoke with them this morning. Everything went fine in the lead-up. Very happy with their cars. They hardly did any laps of practice at all, and they were one of the later arrivals at the circuit during the week.
And look at this, problems for Dickie Johnson. Johnson goes into the turn, and Jimmy Richards straight around the outside. Johnson slowed appreciably down on the inside line as they were approaching the turn, and has eased off completely. So maybe Dick Johnson's race has been run. Yes, Johnson's race has been run. Jimmy Richards, car number 3, the JPS BMW team, takes over the lead in run 3 of the Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship. Johnson limping back towards the pit area. That should now move Glenn Seaton up into second and Tony Longhurst third.
Certainly a big burst of pace from Dick. A shame for everybody here in Queensland. Probably the biggest crowd that I've ever seen at the circuit. But he has now proven that there is performance in this car, and the development's there. You've only got to keep working with it. And that's something that'll keep him smiling for a while, and indeed his sponsors. Look at this battle for second place now. Glenn Seaton currently second. Tony Longhurst is third. And Tony is working very, very hard. Glenn wisely covers his tracks a little as they go through the right hand of the Volvo Carousel.
Longhurst getting closer all the time.
This time last year, Tony was driving the 325, now a 6-cylinder version, and bowled a bit of a wide on the top of the track down there. And there's Dick getting out of his car, and he ripped the sump off the BMW, which probably turned everybody's cars inside out. Let's hope that things work out a little bit better for him this time. Dick talking with brother Dave. Dino Johnson, one of the men responsible for putting together this big effort by the Johnson team.
We'll be having a talk with Dick in just a second, but in the meantime, Richards leads, Glenn Seaton in second, and back behind them, of course, Tony Longhurst and Alan Grice, who, of course, is down a lap because of the pit stop. I'd say he's gone in and come out maybe with some softer rubber on, because he's been able to hang in behind them for the last half lap. There's Grice, pictures from race cam. He's just going to make life that much more uncomfortable for Tony Longhurst.
Well, knowing how much these two love one another, this should be entertaining. These two had a fracas on, I think, 1984 in a battle over the Alpha Series. But we'll come back and have a look at this battle later on. Something a little more interesting at this stage is just what did happen to Dick Johnson. Cole Young has the answer.
Dick out of the race, what's the problem?
Well, actually, Cole, I thought we'd make a bit of a race of it this weekend, being our own track and all. So we turned the wig up, was giving us 1.8 bar a boost, which is great stuff, mate, because you can blow away in a straight line, which is the way the Commodores have been doing it all the time. So I thought, well, the old Henry can go past him any day. And unfortunately, the teeny little turbo that they got just couldn't hack the pace. But we know how to fix the problem, and we'll fix it before next race.
Been a lot about talk about your turbo today. Is it legal?
Mate, I reckon around about midnight tonight might show whether it's legal or illegal. I reckon we got a really good case, otherwise we wouldn't have put it on the car.
Okay, Dick Johnson, great drive early in the race, but he's not going to win today here at Lakeside in front of his home crowd. Mike.
Yes, Cole. Bit of a pity, really, to see Dick out, but look at this race, the scrap continuing between second place Glenn Seaton. The man right behind him, of course, is Tony Longhurst, and Grice in there just to make life unbearable for the pair of them, particularly if he can get a straight line shot at them. Try and pull back that lap and go chasing after the leaders. Here's Grice. Sitting right in behind Longhurst. Through the carousel. Coming back down towards the Dunlop Bridge. Seaton has handled the situation here beautifully. He's been under a lot of pressure for maybe 20 or so laps.
Has come on a treat, hasn't he, Mike, in the last 12 months. When he first got into the big league, a few of his the more experienced drivers were prepared to take exception to some of his aggressive driving, but I think he settled down and really matured as a race driver.
He certainly has done that.
A chip off the old block.
His dad should be very proud of him. As he said earlier in our Park Royal Pole Sitters recap,